Child's father is already serving life in prison for the girl's death, and on Wednesday, her mother heard her fate in the Kent County courtroom.
In this video, we will be discussing the reactions of female convicts after receiving life sentences.
These women have been convicted of serious crimes and now facing the harsh reality of spending the rest of their lives behind bars. From tears to violent outbursts, these reactions are sure to leave you speechless. So without further ado, let's dive into the top 10 female convict freakouts after being given a life sentence. Number 1. Shelby Isaac. Shelby Isaac was a 19-year-old from Memphis, Tennessee who committed a heinous crime in January 2017 that resulted in the deaths of 3 innocent people. Isaac had met with Eddie Tate to purchase hair weaves worth $250.
During their second meeting, Isaac assaulted them using a firearm when Tate and his pregnant girlfriend arrived at the Sycamore Lake apartments.
Isaac's defense argued that there was no physical evidence linking her to the crime, but the prosecution contended that Isaac had planned the assassination to get her money back from the hair weave purchase. During the trial, the only witness placing Isaac at the scene was her co-defendant, Victoria C. However, the prosecution found crucial evidence, including a fingerprint belonging to Isaac on a receipt inside Tate's car, linking Isaac to the crime. The trial lasted 4 weeks, and during the closing arguments, both the prosecution and the defense made their cases to the jury.
The prosecution argued that the crime was premeditated. They said that she had intentionally lured Tate and Thomas to the apartment.
They also argued that Isaac had acted alone and that there was no evidence of anyone else being involved in the crime. The defense, on the other hand, argued that Isaac was innocent and that there was no evidence linking her to the crime. They stated that the prosecution's case was based solely on circumstantial evidence and that there was no direct evidence proving Isaac's guilt. They also argued that the police had mishandled the investigation and that there were several inconsistencies in the evidence. Despite the defense's arguments, though, the jury found Isaac guilty of second-degree reckless homicide and criminally negligent homicide. The judge sentenced her to 30 years in prison, a fitting punishment for her heinous crimes. After hearing the guilty verdict of second degree, Isaac collapsed and cried out for her mother. The trial and its outcome had a profound impact on the victims' families, who expressed their heartbreak and loss. Gloria Tate, the mother of one of the victims, stated that nothing could ever fill the void in her life. The tragedy that Isaac had caused not only resulted in the loss of 3 innocent lives, but it also shattered the lives of those it left behind. Number 2. Molly Jane Rowe.
Molly Jane Rowe, a woman from Bells, Tennessee, was charged with first-degree and aggravated assault after throwing her boyfriend's daughter, Malia Marie Marley, which resulted in her death.
The case gained widespread media attention due to the brutal nature of the crime. Molly had a history of addiction and had previously lost custody of her own children. She was living with her boyfriend, who was Malia's father at the time of the incident. According to reports, Molly had been left alone with Malia while her boyfriend was at work. During the trial, the prosecution presented evidence of Molly's guilt, including DNA found on the victim and in her apartment. They also pointed out that Molly had a history of substance abuse and was known to have been using at the time of the crime. Despite Molly's protestations of innocence, the jury found her guilty on all charges. When the judge pronounced her sentence, Molly reacted with disbelief and shock. She buried her head in her hands and let out a low, anguished moan as the reality of what she had done finally caught up with her. The judge sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring that she would never be able to harm another child ever again. The tragedy of Malia's death and the brutality of Molly's actions sent shockwaves through the community. Many people were left questioning how such a heinous crime could have been committed by someone who was supposed to care for the child. Malia's family was left devastated by their loss, and the community rallied around them in support.
Molly's case serves as a reminder of the importance of ensuring that children are in safe and caring environments.
It is a tragic example of how a life can be cut short by the actions of someone who is supposed to protect and care for them. While justice has been served, the memory of Malia will continue to live on in the hearts of those who loved her, and her death will forever be a reminder of the importance of protecting the most vulnerable members of our society. Number 3. Tatiana Fusari. Tatiana Fusari was born in Michigan in 1996. She grew up in a strict religious household that adhered to an anti-vaccine and anti-medicine belief system. She met Seth Welch, a fellow adherent of these beliefs, and they married in 2015. The couple had 3 children together, and they lived in a rural area of Kent County, Michigan. On August 2, 2018, Tatiana and Seth's 10-month-old daughter, Mary Welch, died of dehydration and malnutrition. Tatiana and Seth admitted that they had not sought medical care for Mary despite noticing that she was malnourished because of their religious beliefs and distrust of medicine and the government. During the investigation, it was revealed that the family's home was filled with mold, vermin, and insects, and that their 2 older children had never received medical treatment from a doctor. Tatiana and Seth were both arrested and charged with felony assassination, homicide, and first-degree child neglect. During their trial, they continued to maintain their beliefs and refused to show any remorse or take responsibility for Mary's death. They were found guilty on all charges. In January 2020, they were both sentenced to life in prison for causing serious physical harm to a child. They were also given an additional 15 to 30 years for the first-degree abuse charge. When Judge Paul J. Denenfeld pronounced the sentence, Tatiana and Seth showed no visible emotion. However, after the sentencing, Tatiana's attorney stated that Tatiana was disappointed with the outcome and that she maintained her innocence. Seth, on the other hand, was recorded on a phone call from jail to his father where he expressed anger and frustration at the court's decision and continued to defend his beliefs and actions. Tatiana Fusari's case is a tragic example of the consequences of extremist beliefs and the dangers of refusing medical care to vulnerable children. The case sparked widespread outrage and renewed discussions about the role of religion and government in protecting children's welfare. Number 4. Elizabeth Escalona.
Escalona is a mother of 5 who was convicted of taking the life of her daughter, Jocelyn Cedillo, in 2011. The incident occurred after Jocelyn had a potty training accident.
The incident caused Jocelyn to go into a coma for several days.
Despite this, she pleaded for mercy and claimed that she had been a victim of violence in the past.
However, her plea did not move District Judge Mitchell, who found her guilty of first-degree injury to a child. When asked to count the bruises she inflicted on Jocelyn, Escalona wailed and agreed with the prosecution that only a monster could inflict such injury on a child. When she learned about her sentence of 99 years in prison, Escalona bent over in tears while her mother wailed and screamed about her baby. The sentence went into effect immediately, and Escalona would be eligible for parole in 30 years. Her children, including Jocelyn, are now under the custody of their grandmother.
The case sparked outrage and condemnation across the country, with many calling for tougher penalties overall.
When she heard her sentence, Elizabeth bent over in tears. However, the louder reaction came from her mother, who wailed and screamed for her daughter. This case highlights the horrific nature of child neglect and the devastating consequences it can have. It also shows the importance of holding abusers accountable for their actions and ensuring that justice is served for the victims. While Escalona's plea for mercy may have been rooted in her own traumatic experiences, it cannot excuse the harm she inflicted on her innocent child.
This tragic case serves as a reminder of the importance of protecting vulnerable children and the need to take swift and decisive action against this evil.
By holding these criminals accountable for their actions, we can work towards a world where children can grow up in safety and security, free from the threat of violence and harm. Number 5. Michelle Blair. Michelle Blair was a 35-year-old mother of 4 who committed a heinous crime in 2015 that shook the community. She was in court for the deaths of 2 of her children, 9-year-old Stephen Gage Berry and 13-year-old Stoney Blair. Blair had a history of financial struggles and job instability. She was served an eviction notice for not paying rent and always asked friends and family for cash.
In March 2015, while a team from the district court was removing Blair's property from her house, they made a shocking discovery in her living room.
The team quickly contacted the police, who arrived and discovered yet another body of a boy in the freezer. Blair was found in a neighbor's apartment with her 2 remaining children, aged 17 and 8, and was quickly arrested after brief questioning. The autopsy revealed that the bodies had been in the freezer for over a year. During her confession, she revealed that she assaulted Stephen because he had made derogatory comments about her weight and how he used to sit on his face. She also revealed that almost a year after Stephen's death, she discovered that Stoney was hurting her son and got rid of her too. She even said, "I would assassinate him again." Blair was charged with a first degree at the Wayne County Circuit Court. During her sentencing and custody hearing, she was irate, frequently had outbursts, and interrupted the attorneys, insisting that they were lying.
Despite her defense's efforts to argue that she was mentally ill, Blair pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first degree and was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
Blair's reaction to her sentencing was indifferent, and she appeared to have no remorse for her actions. This case sparked outrage and disbelief in the community, and people were shocked that a mother could commit such a horrific crime against her children. It serves as a reminder of the importance of seeking help when one is struggling and how failing to do so can lead to dire consequences. Michelle Blair's story is a harrowing reminder of the consequences of failing to seek help when struggling with financial and emotional difficulties. While her actions were shocking and deplorable, the case highlights the importance of seeking help and support when facing challenges. Number 6. Regina Johnson. Regina Johnson, a 55-year-old woman from San Diego, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole on Friday, January 11, 2019.
This happened because she had mercilessly taken the lives of both her husband and teenage daughter.
She'd been arrested multiple times over the years, and her husband had filed for divorce several times. But in 2012, Johnson was able to win her husband back, and they moved to a new home in Paradise Hills with their children. On May 28, 2012, Johnson called 911 to report that her daughter, Aaliyah, had been shot.
When police arrived, they found Aaliyah's body, and while checking the house, they discovered Reuben Johnson's body in a bedroom.
Regina Johnson initially claimed that she had been shot at too, but an investigation quickly revealed that she had been the one who had fired the fatal shots. During the trial, prosecutors argued that Regina Johnson had planned the assassinations for financial gain. She had taken out several life insurance policies on her husband, and after his death, she had received over $350,000 in payouts. She had also stolen money from her daughter's college fund, which was worth over $90,000. The jury found Johnson guilty of 2 counts of first degree, and on January 11, 2019, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. According to Regina, her husband attacked her daughter, and that's why she shot him, but the evidence tells something else. At the sentencing hearing, Johnson showed no remorse and continued to maintain her innocence, claiming that she had been set up. Her son, who had survived the shooting, spoke at the hearing and expressed his love for his mother, but also his disappointment in her actions. The judge, Honorable Joan Weber, described Johnson's crimes as heinous and horrible and stated that she had shown no remorse or empathy for her victims. The judge also noted that Johnson had a history of domestic violence and addiction, and that she had taken advantage of her daughter's trust by stealing from her college fund. Regina Johnson's history of violence and substance abuse, coupled with her greed, led her to commit the heinous act of taking the lives of her own husband and daughter for financial gain. Her lack of remorse and empathy for her victims resulted in a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Number 7. Jody Herring. Jody Herring was a 40-year-old woman from Vermont who was involved in a tragic accident that took the lives of 4 individuals, including a social worker and 3 of her own relatives. The incident took place on August 7, 2015, and Herring was subsequently arrested and charged with 4 counts of assassination. Herring had a troubled past and had previously been involved with Child Protective Services due to concerns about her parenting. She had lost custody of her 9-year-old daughter, and this had reportedly caused significant emotional distress for Herring. She had also been struggling with mental health issues and had a history of substance abuse. On the day of the incident,
Herring went to the home of her relatives, Rhonda Herring and Regina Herring, and caused the unfortunate passing of both women. She then traveled to a nearby social services office and did the same to Laura Sobel, a social worker who had been involved in the custody case of Herring's daughter. Finally, Herring returned to the home of her relatives and caused the passing of her cousin's mother-in-law, Julie Falzarano. She was charged with 4 counts of causing harm, and her trial began in April 2017. Herring was found guilty on all 4 counts and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
During the trial, Herring showed no remorse for her actions and appeared to be emotionally detached from the situation. Her defense team argued that her mental health issues had contributed to the crime, but this argument was ultimately unsuccessful in reducing her sentence. Following the sentencing, Herring's family members expressed relief that justice had been served. However, they also expressed sadness and disbelief that Herring had been capable of such a heinous act. In a statement to the press, Herring's sister stated, "There is no excuse for what she did. We can only hope that someday we will understand why." Herring herself showed no visible emotion during the trial and did not make any statements in court. However, in an interview with a local newspaper prior to the trial, she stated that she had been wronged by the Child Protective Services system and that she had had enough. It is unclear whether Herring still holds these views or whether she has come to accept responsibility for her actions. Jodie Herring's case is a tragic reminder of the devastating consequences of untreated mental illness and the importance of effective intervention for individuals struggling with these issues. While her crime is unforgivable, it's clear that Herring was a deeply troubled individual who may have benefited from more intensive treatment and support. The loss of 4 innocent lives is a tragedy that will never be fully comprehended, but it's important that we continue to strive towards a society that prioritizes mental health and well-being in order to prevent future tragedies like this one. Number 8. Diana Lovejoy. Diana Lovejoy, a resident of Carlsbad, California, made headlines in 2017 for plotting to assassinate her ex-husband with the help of a gun instructor, Weldon McDavid Jr. Lovejoy was found guilty of conspiracy to commit an assassination, assault with a firearm, and false imprisonment by a jury in November of that year. McDavid was also found guilty of all the charges. Lovejoy and her ex-husband, Greg Mulvihill, were embroiled in a bitter custody battle over their young son. Lovejoy allegedly believed that ending his life was the only way to gain full custody of their son. The couple had divorced in 2014, and Lovejoy had been ordered to pay Mulvihill child support. The plan to assassinate Mulvihill was rather simplistic, according to police.
Lovejoy lured Mulvihill to a park under the guise of discussing their custody battle, and McDavid emerged from the shadows, injuring Mulvihill.
Despite being severely injured, Mulvihill managed to flee to a nearby road where he was able to flag down a passing driver and receive medical attention. During their trial, jurors commented on the clear evidence that both Lovejoy and McDavid were working together to commit the crime. They found Lovejoy guilty of all charges and sentenced her to 25 years in prison, with McDavid receiving a sentence of 50 years. As the verdict was read, Lovejoy dramatically collapsed in court, requiring firefighters to carry her out while she was bound by her hands and feet. Her reaction was not surprising given the severity of the charges and the possibility of spending decades behind bars. Despite Lovejoy's belief that assassinating her ex-husband was the only way to gain custody of their child, her actions ultimately proved futile. Instead of gaining full custody, she was sentenced to a long prison term, leaving her son to grow up without his mother and probably despise her for the rest of his life. The case serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of resorting to extreme measures to settle disputes, particularly when children are involved. Number 9. Kayla Norton and Jose Joe Torres. Kayla Norton and Jose Joe Torres, a couple from Georgia, were sentenced to a combined 19 years in prison for their involvement in a group's racist rampage and an attack on an 8-year-old's birthday party. The attack included shouting racial slurs, making armed threats, and waving Confederate battle flags. Norton and Torres were part of a gang of white supremacists who targeted African Americans with racist taunts and threatened to hurt minorities. During their trial, evidence was presented that showed the couple's involvement in the hate group and their participation in the attack. At their sentencing, Norton wept in the courtroom and apologized to the family that endured the attack. She stated that she was sorry and the actions that she had taken were not representative of who she is. Torres also apologized and stated that he was ashamed of his actions. Despite their apologies, Superior Court Judge William Bull McLean handed down a harsh sentence of 13 years in prison and 7 years of probation for Torres and 6 years in prison with 9 years of probation for Norton. Both were also banished from Douglas County. The sentence was met with mixed reactions. Some praised the judge for handing down a tough sentence, while others criticized the sentence as being too harsh. Norton and Torres' family members expressed their disappointment with the sentence, stating that the couple had made mistakes but did not deserve such a severe punishment. In the aftermath of the sentencing, many have pointed out the prevalence of white supremacist groups in the United States and the need to address the root causes of hate crimes. Some have called for increased education and awareness about the dangers of hate groups, while others have called for stricter laws to combat hate crimes. Overall, the case of Kayla Norton and Jose Torres serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of hate and the importance of holding individuals accountable for their actions. The sentencing sends a message that hate crimes will not be tolerated in any form, and those who perpetrate them will be held accountable. Number 10. Alexandria Thomas.
Alexandria Thomas, an 18-year-old woman from Florida, was arrested for allegedly attacking her boyfriend, Joseph Genovese, in a public parking lot. The incident occurred after the couple had a fight, and Thomas claimed that she assaulted Genovese in self-defense.
According to court documents, Thomas told investigators that she poked Genovese with a knife and did not intend to hurt him seriously. However, Genovese suffered severe injuries and was placed in a medically induced coma by doctors. It remains unclear why the couple was fighting. Thomas broke down in tears during her first court appearance, where the judge set her bond at $20,000. She was charged with aggravated battery with a deadly weapon and was facing up to 15 years in prison if convicted. The incident had shocked the community and sparked a debate about the use of violence in relationships. Many people have expressed their support for Genovese, while others have criticized Thomas for her actions. According to Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office investigators, the two got into a brawl in the parking lot of a Publix store in Royal Palm Beach. "I just wanted him to leave me alone," Thomas told police, according to the probable cause document. According to investigators, this is when Thomas produced an 8-inch knife from her purse and stabbed Genovese in the chest. Thomas contacted 911 and told the dispatcher what she had done, according to the probable cause affidavit. Genovese was airlifted to St. Mary's Medical Center, where he was rated as critical. In a statement, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office said that they take all cases of domestic violence seriously and urged anyone who is experiencing abuse to come forward and seek help. As the case proceeded through the legal system, Thomas was provided with the opportunity to defend herself against the charges. Regardless of the outcome, this incident serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of domestic violence and the importance of seeking help if you're in an abusive relationship. No one deserves to be hurt, and there are resources available for those who need them.